Remember this drone from Three Idiots? It was manufactured by the largest drone manufacturer in the country, Ideaforge. But isn't this just for fun? They're actually going IPO, raising 750 crore rupees. I had no idea why this was interesting, but we found out that the industry is growing like crazy and the company is also interesting. And I went around the office asking, yaar, Ideaforge ka naam suna hai? And no one had a clue. So I thought maybe we should do a video around it. What does the industry do? Is the industry even growing? I know people talk about AI a lot, but what about drones? And how is this company able to raise so much money? Are the financials good? What is the growth? Is it even profitable? And lately the IPOs we've seen kind of sucked. So I'd like to see if this is good or not. So that's what we're going to cover in this video. So let's start with Ideaforge's history. And like all interesting companies, they didn't go out to start to make a business and calculate the profit margin. I think these guys are just genuine drone nerds. The founders are 4 IIT Bombay alumni and they just genuinely like this. Their first quadcopter was in 2004. After that, they participated in different competitions like the Robocon held in China. There was one in association with MIT in the US. But soon after that, something magical happened. They actually got an offer from India's defense. So the DRDO said that they should make drones for the Indian army. So they said, okay, I think there's genuine demand. The army needs it. Sounds something interesting. Let's make a business out of it. And they created, in association with DRDO, their first quadcopter, which was Netra. This was in 2009 and the early prototype was actually used in the movie I talked about, Three Idiots. And since then, there's been no looking back for Ideaforge because now they're the key supplier for all UAVs to the defense. So 50% of all UAVs that the government uses is provided by Ideaforge. So that's where the money is coming from. But you know, defense, countries and UAVs isn't something new. Way back in 1849, Austria used to load up balloons with actual explosives and then bomb Venice. So they've been trying to do this for a while. It's just that thoda high-tech ho gaya abhi. So things haven't really changed. In fact, India actually acquired drones from Israel in the 90s to survey the LOC, during the Kargil war times. Now, drones have been in existence for a long time. And since 2006 is actually when things changed. In the US, commercial drones got approved. Now, what does that mean? It could be Amazon delivering via drones. It could be mining, could be surveying. For commercial purposes, it only started and got approved in the US in 2006. In India, that approval happened in 2018. But if you rewind a little bit, around 2014, India actually banned commercial usage of drones. And this meant every single industry like mining, agriculture, public safety, film, and even delivery, because it was in a gray area, they just weren't allowed to do it. But now, of course, it is allowed. So generally, something that is very high-tech or cutting-edge usually is expensive and requires a lot of research. Drones also fall in that category. So do lasers and so many other technologies. So generally, it is the government defense of different countries which actually adopt that technology first, spend a lot of research power in it, make it useful, and then once that cutting-edge technology becomes technology that can be used, it becomes more commercial. So you can see in this chart over here, from 2018 to 2020, that most of the market in 2018 was just defense. And it makes sense, right? It's expensive to actually run and a lot of unknowns are there. Businessmen just won't take that risk. But as we progress, you can see that the commercial viability of drones increases a lot more. So it's predicted that, say, by 2030, the defense will be smaller than the entire commercial market. So this basically means this is a sunrise industry, which means more people will adopt this as long as new entrants keep coming. So think of Ideaforge like this new kid on the block who's trying to occupy market share. Also, the global drone industry is set to grow from the current 21 billion all the way to 90 billion. Now, I know this sounds very impressive, but later on we'll talk about India's market share. It's really, really small. So don't get too swayed about these market reports of how big the industry could be. So I think a good way to understand this, because they're going IPO, let's understand the financials of this company. But there was one problem. I could only find financial records for the last 2 years or 3 years very clearly. From 2009 to 19, there was just almost no data we could find. So whatever we show you is just based on the 2-3 years data that we could find. So before we get into the actual financials, which are interesting and peculiar actually, because it's a small company trying to grow in a sunset industry, let's see where drones are actually used. So divided into two, there's civil, which is commercial, and then there's defense. Within civil, you have stuff like agriculture, there's traffic monitoring, there's utilities, oil and gas, mining, etc. There's also obviously the defense side, where you have counter-insurgency, border security, and even stuff like anti-terror. Mostly, a lot of this is surveillance, and the government really needs it because certain places can't be gone on foot, and it's a great way to know what's happening on certain areas, which is why governments love this kind of technology. But if you go further, you'll see, and the DRHP actually says this, that the revenues have done 237% CAGR. CAGR basically means average of the last X number of years, 230% growth ho raha hai. Sounds impressive, right? But think about it, it's actually a small company growing really fast. So the 200% may be a little misleading. Let's look at the absolute numbers. It's gone from about 14 crores in 2020 to 34 crores the year after that, and then 160 crores the year after that. Is this a big jump? Absolutely. But as a public, as a retail investor, what matters to you is, will this growth continue over the next, say, 5 or 10 years? That's what you're really trying to answer. You're never buying a business because it has cool tech. You're buying it because it has a defensible moat. And because of that, it's able to grow over the next 5-10 years. Tabhi aapka paisa grow karega. Otherwise, there's no point in investing, right? So let's understand whether that continuation of growth can actually happen or not. So let's see over here. We can see that it's turned profitable. This is a very nice thing because a lot of the DRHPs that came out, the IPO'd companies, were not profitable. This one is, and that's very, very nice. And that actually makes them stand out. Their EBITDA is also decent if you see over here compared to all the other peers. Their margin is also decent. So it seems like this is a big fish in a small pond. So if you look at all the competitors, and we've taken this out from the DRHP, they've shown that they actually have the highest revenue of 21 million compared to everyone else, which is actually a small number for an IPO'd company, right? It also has a decent EBITDA, 44%. But you'll notice all the other competitors aren't really competing, right? Like their revenue is still really low. So they can say that they're the most profitable, largest drone company in the country. And it's true, but it's just a really, really small market right now. Another thing we should look at is when you raise money from the public by doing an IPO, you want to take that money, put it back in your company so the company continues to grow. A lot of companies were doing this to exit their existing investors, where none of the money would go to the company for the company to grow. So it just felt like a cheat. But in this case, let's understand, if they're raising 750 crores, paisa kahan ja raha hai? So we also call this the IPO proceeds. So out of 750 crores, 50 crores will be used to repay debt, 135 crores for funding future working capital requirements, and 40 crores in product development. This is good. It means all of this money that I just said, 50 plus 135 plus 40, goes towards the company and helps them grow further. But the problem is the total raise is 750 crores. That means 60% of the total raise is going as an OFS, meaning existing investors are exiting. A small portion will be exited by one of the founders. Other companies like Qualcomm is doing a complete exit. So this means that 60% of the raise is going as an exit and the rest is going to the company. Not generally good. You would generally want the opposite. You would want maybe 20% as an exit or max 30% as an exit and the rest to go to the company for further growth. I don't see this as a good thing at all. What do you think? Put it in the comments below. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this. Okay, cool. So let me show you another aspect of the business. So whenever a business has to receive money, they raise an invoice and the party which has to pay pays for that invoice. Now the way accounting works is when you raise that invoice, the accountant just puts that as an entry that the money has been received. Sort of. The accounting is you bill based on what you've invoiced. But sometimes what happens is that invoice is never cleared. So you can show a lot of revenue, but the cash flow isn't happening, like the payment receiving you. So in this case, the client is the government. Sorry, I just wanted to take a pause there. What do you think would happen if large amounts the government has to clear? Would they clear it very quickly? I don't know. I'm not saying anything. Let's just look over here. This is called trade receivables, which means you raised an invoice but not received the money in your account. This should not be high. So if you look at this, 2021, the trade receivable was 11 crores and 2022, the receivable was 55 crores. Now, if you look at it from a absolute number, it's a very high number. For a company this size, 55 crores, not received yet from the government, not a good thing. Another way to look at it is, from 2021 to 2022, that receivables has increased, which means they don't have control on receiving the money from their client. So this is a risk. As a retail investor, you should know. Again, put this in the comments below. I'd love to know, do you think this is a risk or the government needs this technology, they will clear it? देर आ सकता है but आ जाएगा. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me summarize all of this in say 3 or 4 risk buckets. Okay. So the first risk that the company has is that there are tight regulations that they have to look at because the DGCA decides the rules. They have to follow those rules. So anything to do with say importing or exporting, you need licenses. There is a government barrier over there, as it should be. But for an investor, it is some risk. After that, there is just dependent on Government of India contracts. So, for example, if there is a B2C company which controls its users, knows its distribution, and can sell through distributors, we say that that is distributed risk. But when you have one single buyer who is your main supplier or your main source of revenue, if that one person leaves for whatever reason, it could be out competing you or something else, that is a very big risk. It's just a single point of failure. And you can see that one buyer is the Government of India. You can see the revenue and the percentage of that revenue that comes from the government, 89%, 76%, 79%. So if at any time another competition comes in the market which can beat this company, then that revenue can take a huge hit. This is the second risk you need to think as an investor. The third risk is just dependency on global vendors to actually make the product. So everything from fiber tubes, motors, antennas, batteries, everything is imported from abroad, assembled in India, and the final product is put out. It's not that anything is manufactured here. The main things are actually imported. So that global supply chain is another risk you need to think about. And then finally, we also have a lot of competition. Look at these names. You see them? All of these guys are actually trying to compete in the drone market. So that's never a good thing. And there's an unlikely competition as well, right? So एक तो मुझे लगता है if something does well, Reliance will come and be like Reliance Aerospace. हो सकता है, कुछ भी हो सकता है. But before that happens, there is Amazon. Amazon actually does drone deliveries in the US. And they have piloted and are actually delivering some places already. Now the question is, if India is such an important market for them, would they do the same in India? If the answer is yes, inevitably to karenge hi. Though the problem here is that they are doing Amazon's own drones in the US. So will they manufacture their own drones for this here as well? That's the question, because if delivery is such a big part, it's unlikely that they will completely outsource it because they won't control on timing and quality and also cost, right? So one thing that could be is that this could be a great acquisition target for Amazon. The other could be they could just come and become like a competitor to the company. But I think what's surprising is that the Indian market is only $43 million. That's what 8 4s are 32. 330 crores, I guess. And the entire market in the globe is about 21 billion. So, I mean, even if the industry is going to 90 billion, who cares? India ka industry is super small and Ideaforge is still playing there. Another positive way to look at it is that the entire industry can grow exponentially. So if you think the industry can grow exponentially in India, can you put in comments why and what industries will actually buy it? I'd love to know what you think. So let's talk about some good things and what the growth could be for this industry. The first is the government offers a PLI, a production linked incentive scheme, where anyone producing drones could get a benefit of $15 million throughout the industry. It's a small amount, but at least there's some incentive. Second, the number of drone startups has actually gone up from 157 to 240. So a lot more people are interested in UAVs. And third, I thought this was the more interesting part. We can see that a lot of existing businesses want to use or are testing UAVs. So look at this. Swiggy's Instamart commenced a pilot project in Delhi and Bangalore offering grocery deliveries using UAVs. I thought that was pretty interesting. Then Tata Steel actually signed an MOU with Australia for boundary and safety zone surveillance, where they just use it for surveillance purposes. That was interesting too. The Rajasthan government deployed drones to prevent illegal mining. So imagine how much time and effort is saved just by using these UAVs. And we can see that even during COVID, vaccines were deployed via UAVs. So the use cases are increasing, but I still think people don't know exactly where UAVs can be used immediately, and there's no crazy demand for it. It's still in the testing phase. Another good news is that a competitor called Dronacharya, interesting name, Dronacharya, listed in the SME platform of BSC. That IPO'd at an 89% premium. And I saw it when I went on the website. It's still a small company, but 89% premium means that there were people willing to subscribe for that kind of idea. Finally, I think it's easy to say two things are certain. India's market is super small. The entire global market is very large, and there could be growth here. The second thing is the IPO itself had a lot of OFS. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Please tell me in the comments below. Financially, it seems like there's only one big client, which is the government. Is this a good thing or not? Again, I'd like to know in the comments below. Generally, India being good at drone tech, that I think is interesting. Is there a global market player who can be a leader in drone technology? Probably India has it, right? I think the manufacturing capability, the software, the vision and actual need for it, India should be on top over there for sure. I don't know about local markets, but globally India could be poised to do that. But for that, we need to put our faith in startups like Dronacharya, startups like this one, Ideaforge, so they can actually move forward. But without any actual demand in India, how will they actually grow? I don't know. I just have a lot of questions and no real answers. But I'd love to start this little discussion in the comment section to understand from you, what do you think is the future? I hope you found this interesting. I surely did. See you in the next video.